One of the trademarks of Schwartze was that she had no qualms whatsoever to adapt her style to the wishes of her clients, which is very well illustrated by comparing these two family portraits. This portrait from 1906 has a lively impression, loose brushstrokes, bright colors and kind of nonchalant arrangement in the positioning of the little children and the mother. The Boissevin family wanted their 6 daughters to be portrayed, and they knew this painting. But they didn't like it at all. They wanted something more classical. So Schwartze produced a totally different portrait in style with all kinds of classical images. For instance, the curtain here on the left side, the stone balustrade, the more subdued colors. And on top of that, she quoted the famous Raphael in these 2 children leaning on the balustrade, just like the 2 iconic angels from Raphael. So her clients were king in a metaphorical way, but also literally, because Schwartze portrayed 3 generations of Dutch queens. The last one of the little princess Juliana at 1 year old in 1910. And this portrait, her talent is especially striking because people of my generation recognize the grown-up Juliana in this sweet little baby portrait. Thérèse Schwartze got her commissions from the royal family and the other members of the high society. But a great deal of her commissions came from the upcoming classes. The captains of industry, the insurers, the bankers, the brokers, the self-made entrepreneurs. And they all wanted their portrait painted as a status symbol. The career of Schwartze really coincided with the Industrial Revolution. And she started really a new chapter in Dutch portraiture with emphasis on outward show and elegance, which was welcomed by the new classes. One of these self-made men was Pierre Cuypers, a famous architect of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And in 1886, Schwartze got the commission to portray his daughter Mia Cuypers. And there is a very special story behind this portrait. Because in 1883, the 19-year-old Mia went to the World Exhibition in Amsterdam, and there she fell in love with a Chinese merchant. It caused a huge scandal because it was unthinkable that Mia should end up in an interracial marriage. But Mia stood her ground, and 3 years later, in 1886, she married her loved one. And this portrait was commissioned by the Chinese bridegroom-to-be, Frederick Ten Tong. Apart from the story, this portrait shows Schwartze's extreme talent in pastel. Especially her children's portrait in pastel was so much in demand that she raised the price to that of oil portraits. She was extremely business savvy. Besides commissioned portraits, Schwartze did also a lot of non-commissioned portraits of family and friends. And there she could afford more freedom and apply charcoal. In a letter to a friend, she wrote, "Charcoal is my favorite medium, but the clients don't want it." Schwartze's love life was something extraordinary. When she was 30 years old, she started a love affair with Anton van Duyl, a journalist, art critic and editor-in-chief of the Algemeen Handelsblad. He was 20 years her senior and he had a wife and children. He supported her career in many ways. He advised her to work in pastel, go to Paris exhibit there, and he published about her in his daily newspaper. The most crucial person in the successful career of Thérèse Schwartze was her own father, Johann Georg Schwartze. He was a professional painter himself, and he drilled his most talented daughter from the age of 5 years old. I say drilled because he really behaved like a kind of tennis father, with the explicit message to earn her own bread by painting. This was at the time a total taboo for women, because they were not supposed to earn money. That is to say, women from the higher and middle classes, working class women, worked always. At the age of 16 years old, Thérèse wrote her father a letter in which she promised him to earn her bread by painting. And when her father died, Thérèse was 23 years old and she had a responsibility for her whole family, her mother, 2 sisters, a brother and herself. This responsibility was not so easy for her, but soon her career started to take off and she became one of the best paid portraitists of her time. And she owned 3 houses in a row at the Prinsengracht in Amsterdam. An important part of the work of Schwartze was her work for the free market, the art trade. The price was not fixed beforehand, and she used many popular 19th century painter motifs. For example, people dressed in folkloristic costumes, but also orientalistic scenes. One of the most popular 19th century painter motifs was the Italian model. Van Gogh, Manet, Monet, Picasso all used this popular motif. Also Schwartze. These were Italians who came from Italy and rented themselves out in Paris as a model. Schwartze died at the age of 67 in 1918, most probably of the Spanish flu. At that time, the whole art landscape had changed and Schwartze's style of painting became something of the past. The legacy of Thérèse Schwartze is twofold. She acted as a role model for the next generation of women painters, especially for her niece Lissy Ansing, who became a paintress herself and was a member of the Amsterdam Joffers, a group of women painters in Amsterdam. And Lissy learned the craft from her aunt in her studio from a young age. Her legacy is also that she is a role model for all of us. She was ahead of her time and had the courage to counter all prejudice against women artists. Her exceptional talent, the mastering of her craft and her business acumen made her one of the best paid painters of her time. You can order my book, Thérèse Schwartze, Painting for a Living. There you will find a great deal of her rich work in full color and the story of her fascinating life.